Monster Hunter Wilds has taken the gaming space by storm, and rightfully so. The game is, of course, the next major installment in a long-running franchise from Capcom. The first Monster Hunter game I ever played was Freedom on the PSP when I first got that handheld. And since then, I've played Monster Hunter on the 3DS and other systems too. Most recent Monster Hunter for me, of course, was World, which, based on sales numbers of that game, it sold like hotcakes too, like every other Monster Hunter before it. But it doesn't seem like Monster Hunter Wilds is having the glowing reception, at least from a player satisfaction standpoint, when it comes to the game's performance, and why this is not something that should be defended nor celebrated in the year 2025. Firstly, let's look at the raw stats. As I'm making this video, Wilds is sitting at 1.3 million players at its peak right now on Steam. Maybe it's even higher by the time you're seeing this, but the fact that it was able to pull in this many people on Steam alone within its first few hours of release, that is staggering, dude. As of right now, Wilds is undoubtedly the biggest PC release of the year, and I can only imagine, based on how popular Monster Hunter is on PlayStation as well, that the PS5 numbers for Wilds, man, those are probably double what's on Steam easily. And hey, I bought the game too, haven't played it yet myself though since I'm writing this video currently first. But I'll play it once I'm done here, and the game's trajectory on Steam is so high that the charts can't even properly show the lines to signify how high the player counts are right now. So if your game is breaking the algorithm on Steam, yeah, it's a hit, fellas. In terms of ranking, it's #1 on Steam. Which, I mean, not surprising, but you'll probably also notice the staggering amounts of negative reviews as well. So what the hell is going on? Well, to put it simply for you, Wilds is yet another PC Day 1 release that is busted for a lot of people. And because of this, some users on Steam are calling for players to boycott Capcom in protest for releasing a buggy game. As this one user said on Steam's forums, "Let's boycott the game doesn't run for anyone. If we all quit and refund, then they'll have to fix it. They thought they could sell us a half-made game and now they're paying the price." Low sales and 41% positive reviews on Steam. Back to Monster Hunter World we go. I mean, it is hyperbole, the game is not selling poorly at all. If I could guess, Capcom has probably already made back their budget and then some already on Wilds within mere hours of release. Did you guys know the game hit around 750,000 players within the first hour of release on Steam? Yeah, I'm not kidding, that's on Steam alone, so combine the PS5 numbers and yeah, it's pretty insane. I should also state that Wilds, having been out for just one day by the time this video is coming out, has already entered the top 10 most played Steam games of all time, and no, I am not kidding, as you can see here on screen. Wilds has actually already surpassed the highest concurrent player count for both Elden Ring and Cyberpunk 2077. It's got a bit to go if it wants to grab the top spot, which I don't know if it'll hit that or not yet, but regardless, the fact that the game is doing this well shows that there's a hungry appetite for genuinely good games. But unfortunately, like I said, the performance on PC is bad. Well, that also depends on who you ask too. Some user reviews range from good to downright "this game is unplayable." One of these reads, "This game is absolutely amazing, but has the worst optimization I've ever seen. I understand that new games are becoming more demanding and people are expected to upgrade, but this is absurd. I'm aware this isn't the first instance of new games having poor performance on launch, because the same thing happened with World, but it feels inexcusable at this point. I am by no means saying the game is bad, but in its current state, you should probably consider waiting for a more stable release." I think we can all agree that's a fair enough assessment. Plus, bro played almost 10 hours of Wilds already. Dude, I'm writing this video, it's 10:45 AM as I'm typing this. This guy didn't sleep. He literally played the moment it went live until his human battery pretty much ran out. If you're reading this, bro, I hope you got a good night's sleep, because that's crazy, man. But it is very unfortunate that Capcom has now done this twice with both World and now Wilds. Another review states, "How does a game manage to run perfectly fine in the open beta and I receive an excellent rating score on the benchmark, but the actual product that costs actual money runs like absolute sludge? I have legit never encountered a game that wasn't at worst playable. I have never seen a game run this poorly while still looking this bad." Yeah, this is the common sentiment the more I sift through the reviews, it seems. The general gist is that Wilds just runs like unmitigated swamp ass for most people, although not everybody, mind you. There were still plenty of reviews from people saying that the game runs fine. However, the difference between the Wilds runs fine for me versus it runs like ass for me seems to come down to hardware for most people. On PC anyway, players with higher PC specs are stating that the game seems to run fine for the most part for them. Some quality dips here or there, like slowdown or a drop in FPS, but generally speaking, it's mostly fine and playable day one. However, what I am noticing is that people complaining and saying that the game runs like molasses are also admitting that for the most part, they don't have up-to-date PCs to play a game like Wilds at release, although, to be fair, there are people with high-end PCs in the reviews that are saying despite their hardware, it doesn't run well either. Look, I'm no maestro of the PC stuff, alright? I play my games on a PS5 Pro, and from what I'm being told, the PS5 version of Wilds is stable and mostly fine at release. But then again, I also played World at release, and that game too ran perfectly fine when I first played it. Unfortunately, for the 1000th time, PC players are being roundhouse kicked in the gonads yet again for buying a game at release. Usually, one platform is considered the main platform for these sorts of games and gets more attention, like before they come out, I guess. Like for example, did you know that back in the day that the Xbox 360 was the #1 platform for most third-party releases during its prime? To compare, like the PS3 version of say Skyrim, that ran like ass compared to the 360 versions because the Xbox versions were prioritized due to the size of the player base at the time. Did you also know that Skyrim had an issue on PS3 where the more you played it, the game had a memory problem? And would actually keep making your game file size bigger and bigger until eventually you just couldn't load it anymore and play your game on PlayStation 3? But on 360, this was never an issue and it ran perfectly fine. The point that I'm making is that based on the generation we're in, that different platforms have become the de facto place most developers target for their games. So like I said, back then it was Xbox 360, then it was PlayStation 4, and now it's PlayStation 5, obviously. Naturally, this means that Wilds has had its PS5 version prioritized over that of Xbox, and yes, unfortunately, even PC platforms. For PC, it seems like they've had every single game pretty much, unless it was PC only I guess, being prioritized for anyone but them. At best, it seems like PC players are the new beta testers of the modern gaming market all of the time. And no, that's not okay, but I do think that developers need to prioritize PC players more because obviously, as we can see based on those raw numbers here, that Wilds has an eager PC player base that does want to play the game. Unfortunately, first impressions mean everything, and I have no doubt that players have already refunded the game to some degree due to the performance of Wilds. Although, clearly, despite refunds or people trying to cause a boycott, it hasn't amounted to much so far, well, yet anyway. Because Monster Hunter is, for those unaware, it's Capcom's premier franchise. It's pretty much bigger than, say, Resident Evil for them even. Capcom, just so you know, they make a lot of money whenever a new game in this series releases. But that's the other problem, right? If this game is their premier franchise, then why isn't it getting the premier treatment for its initial releases? Because releasing not once, but twice now a buggy, unoptimized Monster Hunter on PC in a row will only likely cause people to become hesitant come the next mainline game in the series that gets released. Or perhaps like we saw with World to Wilds, people just kind of forgot how poorly optimized World was at release as well, since obviously that game still sold insanely great. By the way, World broke about 300,000 players at its highest peak on Steam. Wilds is currently doing 4 times that within one day. And despite that, they still didn't optimize the game enough, sadly. It sucks, but here's another review from a player. Very immersive game, you can cook a well-done steak on your GPU while you play, and the hot blasts of air from your PC fans truly make you feel like you are in the desert. Keep a bag of sand by your desk and periodically toss handfuls of it into the air to really complete the experience. Cheeky way of doing it, but yeah, it's probably not a good sign that Wild is cooking your computer's inner workings. Like, for example, my girlfriend, she plays on her gaming laptop. If I were to buy her Wilds for PC to play with me on my PS5, it has crossplay by the way, I just wonder if her laptop could even handle Wilds, or if the game will cause her laptop to sound like a jet engine going off, before it just inevitably goes nuclear and explodes, killing all of us in the process just because we wanted to play a game together. But I think this review, which is short, it tells it the best. This game is everything wrong with PC optimization in 2025. And it really is just that. It's not just Capcom, I know, but lots of games have and will in the future unfortunately launch on PC day one being either broken or messy. The notorious Batman Arkham Knight release comes to mind for me, which was borderline unplayable for most when it released on Steam. However, again, I played Arkham Knight on my PS4 when it released and the game ran perfectly fine and never crashed. But like I said before, PS4 at that time was the main platform, so to speak, for these third-party games. And for PC players, unfortunate circumstance that they're always in, it seems, there's so many different PC builds that getting these games to run efficiently is probably a logistical nightmare to achieve. Obviously, when developing for PlayStation 5, you know everyone has a PS5. They all have the same parts in them and whatnot. It's not different. Yeah, sure, the Pro exists, but you can just add those features on top because, again, if people have Pros, all the Pros are also the same. Obviously, that isn't the same when it comes to PC at all. All of you who play on PC have to some degree different builds, all of you. And look, I'm not defending Capcom here, but it is something to note that when it comes to porting to PC versus PlayStation, it may be similar, but at the same time, way more variables exist. It's probably why I just can't do PC gaming myself, not because I hate it, mind you, but because I'm a chimpanzee whose eyes just kind of roll into the back of my head as people tell me all the things I need when I can just play on a console and just buy the game, press play, and then my monkey brain is then satisfied and happy. I'm a dumbass is why, and if you all don't mind, I would like to keep my gaming habits that way, thank you. However, Digital Foundry did a video on Wilds and showed just how poorly optimized this game is on PC, and here's a clip from that.
Monster Hunter Wilds is a game on PC where I am genuinely confused at the performance for the visual quality that I am seeing on screen. This is true on a high-spec PC, but it is crucially the case on a lower-spec PC where, on first contact, I genuinely cannot advise buying this game if you're on a lower-end GPU or a GPU with 8GB of VRAM. Surface-level impressions, though, when loading up the game for the first time seemed positive. There is a long shader pre-compilation step which took around 6 minutes on a 9800X3D and more than 13 minutes on a Ryzen 5 3600. I had a similar positive impression when looking in the graphical menu. I saw a lot of options here to control things in a fine-grained way with a VRAM meter, preview images for a number of the options, and even little pips which tell you which aspect of your PC is most affected by the option in question, so CPU, GPU, or VRAM. Those things seemed nice on the surface, but another surface-level thing gave me pause when I launched the game. On the first start, the game insists that you turn on frame generation before it even starts with this pop-up. This is the case, even though the developers have no clue about your performance level that you can actually muster in the game. As a reminder, Nvidia or AMD would never advise you to use frame generation with low base frame rates like 30 FPS, as it usually produces poor experiences. Yet this pop-up there shows that the developers are saying turn it on, regardless of actual performance.
Hopefully they didn't copyright that, so hopefully that's still in the video, but as you saw, Digital Foundry basically just said straight up that Capcom did the bare minimum when porting Wilds to the PC versus other platforms. However, as I read the comments, many users were pissed, saying stuff like, why didn't game reviews for this game on PC talk about this performance at all? For an example, PC Gamer, which obviously in its name primarily focuses on PC gaming, gave Wilds an 8.5 out of 10. The entire review mostly just gushes about how fun the game is, how great it looks, and how much content is on offer here. All great stuff. The only part of their review, however, where they speak about the most important part of the equation, which is the performance, is actually near the end of the review, where they have but one segment that says this. Unfortunately, even though Wilds made it easier to join up with friends, my hunting party sessions have been interrupted by repeated crashes. I'm lucky to be playing on a recent PC build that's comfortably within the recommended specs, and in terms of frame rates, the game runs great on my rig. But that hasn't prevented it from crashing during loading screens with frustrating regularity. I'm not the only member of the PC Gamer team to deal with crashes. Though I've had the worst luck with them, until a patch arrives, I'm seemingly at risk of smash cutting the desktop whenever I try to join a friend's hunt. Okay, this is stupid. Incredible how PC Gamer didn't make this part of their review far more prevalent in the grand scheme of their entire piece here. So you're telling me that you played Wilds, you had the game crash, in your own words, on a regular basis, and the game was crashing so much for you that you had the worst luck performance-wise out of anyone else at PC Gamer, and it led to you smashing your desk and being unable to join the games of your colleagues to play it. But despite this obvious, really bad problem that was severely impacting your game time here, you still gave it a glowing score. And look, maybe that 1.5 out of the 8.5, which would make it a 10, was due to the performance, but regardless, that sounds like a major problem you just kind of glossed over in your otherwise glowing review. It's like me telling you to go to this resort and say, oh, the vistas are so nice, the food, oh, it's so tasty. Just ignore that the basement they have there has a mass grave of rotting bodies. But did you know that the resort also has spas? Like, these things need to be addressed, guys, but again, like always, there's this discourse and disconnect between the player experience versus that of a reviewer, because like always, the reviewer never pays for literally anything almost all of the time. So money's never factored into their review scores. I mean, the games that are given to them are free always. Not only that, but most of the time in the case of PC gaming even, these sorts of website publications have their PCs paid for by these websites too. Not all the time, mind you. But if you're going to be reviewing PC games for a PC website, yeah, your PC is probably going to be updated to the best current things for work reasons. My god, I keep saying PC. But that being said, I still think while this is all a problem and a misfire by Capcom to release this game in such an unplayable state at launch, I have to point a finger at these reviewers too, because it's up to them to inform people of what these games entail, warts and all. It adds insult to injury with PC Gamer again. Remember, they gave it 85 out of 100. They had an article that released today that's titled, "It runs awful, it looks awful, Monster Hunter Wilds performance issues put a damper on its record-breaking concurrence as it settles into an early mixed rating on Steam." They even post a picture of what the game looks in-game for them at times, as you can see, and it looks like GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 at best, pretty much. And again, why was this not more present and focused on in your review, PC Gamer? Why did you wait until the release of Wilds to not inform players of the platforms you cover about how poorly optimized this AAA game would be for them out of the gate? It just seems like a massive case of corporate oversight, because they didn't want to piss off Capcom, since when these big games come out, these companies usually buy ad revenue spaces on these websites themselves. One of the more scathing reviews, however, was Polygon, which is titled, "Monster Hunter Wilds is so streamlined it may have lost its soul." I won't read you the whole article, but to give you a gist pretty much, Polygon was very disappointed with the game. They claimed that the story was bland, it took them about 10 hours to complete, give or take, and that the villages that you visit, they felt lifeless according to Polygon. And there's even forced walking sequences where you have to listen to the other characters who are a part of the story who talk about like the world around them. And beyond this, they beat the whole campaign, only upgrading their weapons, get this, twice from the base that they began the game with. They also barely upgraded their armor either, stating that the game is so easy that for veterans of the series, they'll be bored by how everything just doesn't put up a fight at all. Eventually, after about 60 hours of the game, the Polygon reviewer did practically everything in the game and said difficulty-wise that the game never truly got harder, so to speak. They felt vastly overpowered themselves, and the new wound system, that made monsters far too easy to defeat in their opinion. The game also streamlines everything, ensuring that you never even need to get off of your mount to even pick up items now. And you can also cook anywhere too, making the return to camp practically pointless for most players. Polygon's only mention of the game's performance and how it ran for them was right here, as you can see on screen. They don't say much beyond that the game chugged a little and that they had some camera issues, but that's about it. They did play it on PC, but it seems like PC Gamer, they too had a very powerful rig that was capable of playing this. Again, likely paid for by Polygon as a website for the sake of the review, so pretty much all the reviews I came across, which I could keep showing you, but really why bother, they all just reviewed this game on high-end PCs that their work most likely paid for or these reviewers had already. Then you got PC games with their articles showing you how Wilds runs on a Steam Deck, and what do you think? What do you expect? How many frame rates do you think it can get? The answer, by the way, is nothing at all. They actually just straight up say that Wilds is a non-starter on Steam Deck. It's unplayable. And the frame rates are in the sub 20. Yes, you heard that right. The Steam Deck can't even run Wilds at even 20 frames per second. What a mess, man. Like I said, this is a giant fumble of both the PC reviewers and Capcom, because both just decided to not alert the consumers at all to the massive failure of quality assurance here on display before buying this game. Well, at the very least, you can make attractive female characters, I guess. That's a plus, right? I mean, unless they too start looking like Oddjob from GoldenEye and Nintendo 64 too, then maybe not. Oh, okay, then there's gaslighting from you guys too. This is from Games Radar Plus. Monster Hunter Wilds devs have polished our game as much as possible, producer says, which might not be very reassuring for the PC players experiencing performance issues. The producer of the game, Ryozo Tsuchimoto, I probably said that wrong, but this is their response. To all the Monster Hunter fans who have supported this series up until now, and to those who will be stepping into the world of Monster Hunter, we have polished our game as much as possible for you. Well, that is just a lie, Capcom, because why are people trying to boycott your game and refund it if it was polished? And unironically, in this article, one of the tips that Capcom gives PC players struggling is to just update their graphics driver. Yeah, just go out and spend hundreds of dollars on top of what you already spent on Wilds to play it if you play on PC. What's that? You can't afford a new graphics driver in this economy? What are you, one of those poors? Get your money up, chump. This is not our problem, that we didn't offer any solutions to you because your PC rig doesn't cost as much as a mortgage down payment on a house. That's not our problem, that's yours. Look, this entire situation is so stupid, but sadly, it never really surprises me, and I always pretty much just accept that if a third-party game is coming to PC, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that game is going to run like ass through mud. And if on the off chance a game does run well on PC at release, it's celebrated when it shouldn't be, man. It should be the bog standard. Look, I don't hate Capcom, please don't send your Gestapo to kill me. I love a lot of their games like the Resident Evils and Devil May Crys. I still think the name Devil May Cry might be one of the coolest names for any franchise ever, by the way. Whose devil is crying? Me, because I'm crying because that name is so perfect and beautiful. But when it comes to Monster Hunter, this game makes more money per release than entire other studios in multiple years of releases. Y'all should have people just making sure these games run as smooth as silky butter when your game's released. There's really no excuse for it. Don't tell me you don't have the budget for it, it's Monster Hunter. Y'all could release a game that's like 1 hour long for $10. And you would still make $100 million off it easy if the Monster Hunter name was slapped on it. There's genuinely no excuse for this kind of stuff anymore. Maybe years ago this was expected, but these days the hardware and specs for PC versus that of the current day consoles are far more in line than before. PS3, okay, PS3 was notoriously hard to port to, because it did understandably have a very unique engine and all of that, but the PS4 and PS5 are basically just PCs at this point. And again, excuse my ignorance and chimpanzee brain here for a second, but even a dumbass like me has got to stand up here and ask, why do y'all keep treating PC gamers like second-rate citizens? They're some of the most loyal and engagement-filled players on the planet. Why are you treating them like crap? Stop it, there's no reason for this. If there's any one single group of players you probably shouldn't piss off, it's PC players, because they will roast you and make their voices heard. Look, Wild should have been a slam dunk release both in reception and sales numbers. It has half of that equation right now for sure, but it's terribly sad to see regardless. I'll be playing the game a bit once I'm done this video, but for right now, this all just kind of makes me sad, man. We should expect better from these game companies, and they should be putting their quality assurance above everything else going forward here. Look, you can boycott the game all you want, the point still stands that Wild's already made all of its money back immediately. But we shouldn't defend these practices when in any other industry, the products that get sold are always 100% okayed before being put up for purchase. Imagine buying a car and they tell you that the wheels might fall off and the engine might explode at any second, but they still want 100% of the money for it. Yeah, sure, you can buy our furnace for your house, but just so you know, there's a 57% chance it might spontaneously combust. And it'll probably engulf your entire house in flames and, sorry to say, but atomize your children into space dust. But don't worry about all that. Also, it'll be $3,000, thank you. We take PayPal, by the way. Like, this can't be defended. Please speak with your voices and your wallets if you choose to. This can't be the standard going forward anymore. Players deserve better, especially if these companies expect you to pay full price at release for what they know are arguably broken games. Shame that Capcom did this, but I guess we'll see what happens next. Thanks for being here, subscribe, and I'll see you.